welcome you to Vulnerable Voices. This is a
What up?
brand new podcast with the one and only EJA. That would be me and my co-host,
Dr. Paul Miller.
the one and only. Good to see you today, Paul.
Good to see you too.
Today, this episode is entitled No Justice, No Peace. So we're going to be talking about some really important issues that are going on with people of color. We're going to talk about in America. We're going to talk about the feelings of oppression that people of color may have, and just some other systemic issues that may be faced by those we love in our community, and we're going to dig deeper into that. But before we do that, we want to make sure that you take some time to check out ericajohnsonallen.com. That's my personal website. And Dr. Paul Miller, you want to give them your website?
Yes, ma'am. Paul Miller, EDD. The phone is ringing in the background, so you know this is happening in real time. It's Paul Miller. It's live. The phone's ringing. PaulMillerEDD.com.
Sounds great. And don't forget, stay tuned for the next episode. You got to check this one out. Is Somebody Believed in Me. Somebody Believed in Me. Don't miss it. So let's go ahead and start this conversation, Dr. Miller. Give us some theory and a perspective on systemic oppression. What is that?
Man, systemic oppression, you know, it starts, and when we got to go way back for this. So, if we go back to 1619 with slavery, we were brought over as property. We were brought over as 2/5 of a man. You know, we weren't ever designed to be equal. And then you look at through a historical perspective, white folks were taught how to make slaves, and it was deeply ingrained in them that black people and brown people were inferior to them. And you go through the abolition of slavery to the Jim Crow laws, to where it didn't get much better. And through the Jim Crow laws, I believe, it was almost even worse, because, now we're supposed to be
Because if
free.
you could not read and write, then you couldn't even vote, right? I had the biggest conversation with someone the other day about when Black people really had the right to vote, right? And we were talking about the Voting Rights Act, and it was like, no, but they could vote for then. No, not really.
No. What was it? Late 60s?
Yeah, 65. Voting Rights Act.
Yep. All right. And then you think about it, and then we go to Jim Crow and we go to civil rights. Civil rights people were still getting lynched in the 40s and 50s and 60s, and hung
try
from
the 80s
trees.
and 90s.
Hung
right?
from trees,
right
I know.
Yeah, it's real.
Hung from trees. And then you look at the crack epidemic was next. The crack epidemic was dropped into our communities to fund wars in Nicaragua. I can't say Nicaragua, but but
Dr. Miller, let's dig deeper into the crack epidemic.
Right.
And take us to school. Give us some history about that. How what happened?
So, that in the early 80s, there was a desire for people to get higher, and so they figured that if you could cook it and you could cut it, and when you cooked it, it was more potent. But all of the cocaine that was getting dropped in was quite often funded through the United States government, and it was okay as long as the money was being utilized to fund the wars in Central and South America. And so when it was underneath the purview of the government, it was okay. But as the cracks spread, what ended up happening is that quite often, not only did white people, black people, everybody got hooked on it because it was so potent and so powerful. what happened was that the drug laws started to change. And so for cocaine, you might get a smack on the wrist, but for a larger amount of cocaine, you get a smack on the wrist, which was considered a white people's drug. But crack, because it was a lot cheaper and it was flooded within our urban neighborhoods, it was a black person's drug, and the sentences became really, really harsh. And then as people became addicted to crack cocaine and neighborhoods started to deteriorate, then our lovely president, Bill Clinton, introduced the crime bill of 1994. And with the crime bill of 1994 came the 3 strikes law. And they said they were hitting hard on drugs and gangs, that they helped drop into our communities. And, and you think about gangs started often from people just trying to protect their neighborhoods and their property, and then it morphed into other things once drugs got involved. And so what's really going on here has been a deep systemic hate for minorities and for black people throughout the governmental system. You think about even the Housing Act. So in 1968, finally there was the Fair Housing Act, but before that, blacks couldn't get mortgages. And when you think about mortgages, and you think about that, was one of the biggest and one of the leading ways to help improve was to go to college and to get a house and to move into a nice neighborhood, into a good school district. And as black people, we weren't able to do that. And there's still unfair lending mortgage practices that happen, that based on what your name looks like on the application, you may or may not. These systemic things that have happened over the course of the last 400 years, can't be forgotten. To fast forward to today, to all the injustice that are happening, and where we are oppressed and we're getting beat up as a black and brown people, something needs to change. And I think people are just angry, and people are angry. They're tired of not being heard, and others have not been listening. And so now, God rest George Floyd's soul, but something happened that was so blatant. See, with the other cases, people like to say, well, you know what, maybe he shouldn't have been jogging, or they tried to tell him to stop, or things that are absolutely absurd and ridiculous. But with this case, people watched this man get murdered for 9 minutes and watch somebody sit on his neck as he was detained. And so I think that difference has created where people are waking up to a sense like, damn, maybe we need to listen now. Maybe we need to do something different, and maybe we need to create a change. And so now it flashed forward to kind of where we're at, and now what are we going to do with it?
Well, you may be surprised to learn that I had a conversation with a close friend of mine of the Caucasian persuasion, and she felt so strongly that Mr. Floyd resisted. And so my question was, well, did you watch the video? Because I saw the video. Did you see the same video I saw? And she reiterated, yes, I watched the whole 9 minutes. And he did resist, Erica. So I think, we can see it.
Did she feel he deserved to lose his life?
She did not feel like he deserved to lose his life, but she felt like that he resisted. And so then my question to her was, even if you felt like he resisted, then we had a different conversation on what that looks like. Number one, did he deserve to die? Number two, have you ever been handcuffed? Have you ever had someone to put your arms behind your back, put them in handcuffs, try to move you, you're uncomfortable? So what was the expectation? Was he supposed to just not say anything, not tell them that he was uncomfortable, not voice anything at all? And then it was, well, yeah, I guess that would be uncomfortable. I guess you probably would say something. I think having conversations with people and helping them to hear themselves not even make sense, right? I'm just glad that we're able to have a conversation now. because this,
I mean, did you ask her if it was her son laying there, and it was a white child, and a black man had his knee on his neck for 9 minutes? Or even a white man, I don't care who. How would she feel? Did I don't know if you were able to make that point to her, but when people put it in their own backyard, sometimes they have a tendency to build a little
absolutely
bit more empathy.
I'm with you. And we continued the conversation about what it feels like to be Black compared to what it feels like to not be Black or to be white. And you have to understand, like, I truly believe this is her pure heart. Remember, we're friends and we've had conversations before. And she says, Erica, it rarely crosses my mind that I'm white. She said, I look at myself as a suburban housewife. I do this, I do that. I'm from here, I'm from there. And I typically never even think about being white. And so my response to her was, I can be a suburban with a 6-figure income, a PhD, and before any of that matters, first I'm Black.
Right. I had a similar conversation with a gentleman who was trying to build some understanding of why everything was happening, and we were having a conversation between the looting and the rioting and some of the stealing that was occurring, and he was trying to approach it from a very loving perspective. Like he said, if we just love and we don't hate and we don't do these other things, and so he wanted to learn a little bit more. And so as we were talking, he also revealed that he was a gay man, and which to me is to each his own, and if he likes it, I love it, whatever. So at the end of the day, but what I will say is that I tried to explain to him that people are angry, and that even though he's a gay man, when he goes somewhere, if he chooses to, he could hide being a gay man. You can't hide being a Black man, and not to say that he should hide or anything like that. I'm not discriminating, but you can't hide being a Black man. And so when you walk into the room, and he started off because he said his Black friend said to him, am I going to be the only Black person at this party? And he was like, well, when I go to a Black party or I go to a party, I don't really think about, am I going to be the only white person at the party? I'm thinking about, am I going to be the only gay person at the party? And so I explained to him that there are similarities, but the difference is you could hide whether you're gay or not. You can't, and some people are, there's the old argument, some people are born gay, some people have chosen that lifestyle or whatever it may be. But at the end of the day, you don't get to choose, and you don't get to hide being Black, being brown, being a minority. And, he seemed to get it. And then we just kind of went into the conversation about the anger behind it all. There in Texas, did you guys see a lot of anger? Did you see a lot of looting? Did you see
Absolutely.
rioting?
And this was a protest that happened in 50 states, all of them, right? And so here in Texas, we had rioting, we had protesters. I say had in past tense, is still happening today. We had some questionable practices from our police department. We had all of that. So yeah, it happened here in Texas too. And then the conversations, right? So, we've had this conversation earlier. All of my white friends are calling me and saying, well, Erica, what do we do? How do we even start this conversation? I'm in a book study with another one of my friends. We're reading So You Want to Talk About Race, which if you have not read that, it is so enlightening. It is shoot, right? And having those kind of conversations is just transformational, I think, because we've never been in this place before, Paul. This is different.
Absolutely. And I think we're in this space a lot because of I think George Floyd. So I think Candace Owens, and I don't know, I think she's a reporter or whatever she does, but she was stating how George Floyd was not.
No.
Do you know her personally?
I know exactly
Oh,
what you're
okay.
talking about.
Okay. All right. I was about to check your friend list, you know.
I know who you're talking about. Yeah.
All right. So, you know, I was really disturbed when I saw that because, you know, she made some interesting points where she said if there was a Jewish person who had like 5 stints in prison, would the Jewish community be celebrating him like he was a hero and a rock star? And so what I think the point that she was really missing is that regardless of this man's past, what was integral to the situation is that he lost his life and he gave his life, and now it's causing change. His life, because of the way he died, because the way that his life was taken, now he's changing and has the opportunity to get people to listen across the world. And so he gave his life for the world. And if anything, that's why he's becoming a hero. And so, you know what? Like roses can grow out of the concrete. And so regardless of whether this brother had a tainted past or not, he still gave his life to this injustice. And now he's changing the world. And that's what she's missing. And I think people are just angry because of it. And people are tired and want to be heard. You know, but it bothers me, and I would love to get your perspective on it, but it bothers me. So I understand, and what I do understand is, and sometimes it maybe sounds contradictory, as I understand the rioting, the looting, the stealing, I don't necessarily agree with it, but that I believe all of that anger and to the level, and because it hurt people's pockets, now cause people to listen. But I have to then say, as a leader and a leader of people, I can't stand for that. It's not moral. It's not right. Because the difference, and my daughter said to me, is the difference, Dad, between looting and stealing. She said if it was looting, it would be progressive towards the mission. So they might be taking from a large corporation that's funding our president, or a large corporation that is funding something that is anti Black Lives Matter or something of that nature, versus stealing in our own communities and tearing our own communities down, you know. And I understand the anger, and I do think it's caused some agitation enough for some change, but I don't agree with it. When you look, and I watched people doing it through lives and other feeds, you look in their eyes and they were more excited. I saw this one lady stopped her car in the middle of the street with being recorded on live, blocked traffic, went in the store, stole 4 pairs of sneakers, and then got back in her car, and what with the sneakers maybe $600-700, but left a $10,000 car in the middle of the road.
Right.
Like, that's just foolish to me. And you think that she's not going to get in trouble because her license plate was recorded?
So let me ask you this, Paul. Do you think she was one of the many people that was actually protesting as well? Do you think she was part of that group?
She may or may not, and I think a lot of people who were protesting is separate from the people that were looting and rioting. However, that's not completely true, though. Let's not BS. Let's not bullshit people, because at the end of the day, people were leaving the protest, and there was people still around, and it was a
well, this is the thing. You're going to have vultures anywhere, right? Like that's part of it. Yeah, that is part of it. I just hate that Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. said, what that riots is the language of the unheard, right? So, and I feel that, and I get it. I do not agree with it, but I also I don't like it when it's used to deflect from the situation at hand. Like, can we still continue to have the conversation about what's really going on? But I get it, and I think it's wrong. Like, no matter how you phrase it, turn it, twist it, you can't steal. That's wrong. But like I told you, I did see someone going in getting like 4 bags of Pampers.
Right. And there was a need. There was needs there, and part of the needs come out from not having and being in a situation where you feel like you got to steal and now the opportunity was there. And, that's just problems again with the systemic nature of our country, and that they have and they have not. At the end of the day, still, and I agree with you, it's wrong. But interesting enough, so here in Albany, New York, they painted a Black Lives mural on the street that was like how they did on Pennsylvania Avenue, now Black Lives Matter Avenue, I believe. So there's a major street here in Albany, Lark Street, that now has Black Lives Matter painted on it across of it, and the news broadcasted, where something like this, and that's only a beginning, but something like this would have never happened had all this agitation not happened, and whether people didn't stand up and stand for something. So people standing up, they're fighting, even though some of the methodology is wrong. It's a matter of, it's caused some starts and beginnings of change. But interesting enough, on the news feed, there's a Channel 6 news feed, and there's a lot of white folks on that news feed, and a lot of them, their sentiment was, I can't believe they're doing this. I can't believe the mayor is spending any city dollars on this, and I can't believe, and just not getting it, showing how deep the racism is ingrained, like, and it's almost hurtful that people just don't understand or don't want to understand.
I agree. I had that same kind of conversation today, but this is the same conversation that I've been having for years. And it's, this particular person told me, I'm talking to other Black people I know, even conservative Black people, well respected, and they all tell me when they get in the car, they are afraid to be pulled over by the police. And he said he never would have imagined that, right? And that's like our day-to-day life. So to hear people starting to say, now I believe you, I think it's one step forward.
Driving while thing. Black is real. I've been in a car before, and I was picking up my kids from school here in Albany, and at the time I had a nice car. It was an Audi A8, and the windows were tinted, and I was doing the speed limit, and I happened to go through a yellow light, and I went through a yellow light, which is not a crime, it's not illegal, and he pulled me over, and I said, officer, what did I do? He said, you went through a yellow light. I said, I went through a yellow light. And really, he just wanted to see what was in the car. So he's shining the light in the car. He wants to see what's in the car. He starts questioning me like he's going to make me get out of the car. Then he has enough sense to ask me, who are you and what do you do and things like that. And then I told him, because, I could have just called the chief of police on my phone if I wanted to. And, and then as soon as I told him that conversation, we had that conversation, he was like, oh, okay, sir, have a nice day. And the fact is that my kids were scared. I'm nervous because I don't know what's going to happen because I was pulled over for no reason. I mean, and you never know how that could have escalated. And it just so happened that I was blessed to be in a spot or have a career that lended me some privilege with this officer, and it was just
the privilege piece,
crazy.
Right? Yeah. So let's have this conversation before we get out of here, Paul. As a leader, because you have power and you have influence. Right. So as a leader, what's the next step? So what? Now what?
So where do we go from here? And I'm prepared for this. So I believe that we have to address all issues of racism personally, and as a leader in education in your schools or your organizations. You cannot tolerate racist behavior from staff, students, and when there is some, you have to take swift, strong action. You have to hold yourself and demand that leaders, teachers, and any staff around you are accountable, and that their policies and their constituents' policies are in line with the values of the organization, and that they don't veer from that. I believe you have to improve cross-cultural communications, build cultural relevance within your curriculums, your schools, and organizations. Delve and develop deeper connections, build empathy, remove sympathy, stop trying to be the white savior, We don't need more saviors. What we need is empathy and understanding. Sympathy kills, empathy heals. And I really feel like we have to invest in learning in different cultures. It's okay to have different culture. It's okay to be different. Let's start celebrating. Stop saying you don't see color. We need to be seen. We need to be heard. That's offensive. We need to be felt, because for so long we've been unseen and unheard.
I agree 100%. My thing is lead with empathy. You said it. There's nothing left for me to say. You have to lead with empathy. You have to, like you said earlier, what if that was your child? What if that was your brother? What if that was your sister? What if, and I tell teachers and principals all the time, you need to make sure that children are in a learning environment that's suitable for your own personal child. And if we lead that way, then everything is okay. I think as leaders, you have to listen. Don't do all the talking, start listening. And then you have to act. And you got to say something. You have to say something. When you see injustices, no matter what your race, you got to say something. Because the vulnerable ones, they need you to speak for them. We don't need a savior, but we do need a translator.
Right.
Absolutely.
Silence is an omission of guilt. And I believe as a leader, you have an obligation to show your students, your constituents, that their lives matter. And so in closing, I was thinking about this. So as a leader, what are some things that you could do and to take action as a leader right now? And, I would definitely recommend some action items. So one may be to organize a protest, lead a protest, take a stand, support a protest, be a part of it, be on the front line, but that's not for everybody. So one way you might be able to also help is be one of us. How would you feel if it was your child? Empathize. Use your social media platforms, conduct press conferences. I believe we just conducted a press conference here, and as leaders within the community, we were able to give our voice on how to deal with the situations that are at hand and try to lend a positive, but hopefully powerful voice to the situations. Provide platforms for student voices. Listen to your students. Write an op-ed. Support Black business, and schools should your school should support Black businesses. If you're in an area and you do not do business with Black people, shame on you. And what I will leave everybody with is, if you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything as a leader. So it's time to stand up and speak out and make sure that you're leading with your values and morals intact. So that is a wrap. We'll have people, we'll be back for our third installment of who inspired us and how and why and inspired us as a leader. So be on the lookout for that episode and check us out. I'm Dr. Paul Miller. And
I am Erica Johnson Allen. That's ericajohnsonallen.com. Also EJA. Have a good one. Peace.